Hello everybody in Instagram and in YouTube world. Here's another video by your boy Efi's Voice. This is another video of something I have to take. The title of this video is going to be about the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. That's the title of this video. The murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. There was a murder that happened live on video in Minneapolis of a black person named George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police. There was like four police officers, four officers involved, or something like 3 or 4 officers involved, and it was an outright murder. The officer who committed this crime was not arrested. I don't know if he's arrested yet. I don't think he's arrested yet. I know he was fired from the force because of growing outrage over the incident that was filmed and stuff like that. George Floyd was taken into custody or arrested or something like that on a suspicion or a charge of forgery, I think. Or I think like $20. I don't know what the money amount was, but I think it's a forgery. So it was not a violent arrest. It was nothing like that. He was taken into custody peacefully, without restraining and without violence. He was put in handcuffs and laid on the ground. And this is when the officer put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes or so while George Floyd complained that he couldn't breathe, and he watched him die. He put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes or so, and until he was in pain, and he said he can't breathe. He was in discomfort. He was in pain. He couldn't breathe. Then they put him in a police car, and moments later, he passed away. He died. There was like 1, 2, 3, 4 officers involved in this. 3 or 4 officers involved in this. I think 4. So. And the officer involved in the case that actually put his knee on George Floyd had, I think, about 18 other complaints against him, if I'm not correct. 18 other active complaints against him, and stuff like that. So I'm just giving my take on this. This is outright murder. It's not excessive force or lethal force. It's not a case of excessive force or lethal force. This is a case of outright murder. He was not resisting arrest. He was not violent. He was in custody, in handcuffs, on the ground, not resisting, complying, no struggle, in handcuffs, on the ground, and he put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes or so until he died. This is a case of outright murder, and not excessive force or lethal force. This is a cop killing person through murder on camera, and it was filmed, and they got all the evidence that they need. This is a case of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. It was a case of murder. The cop was fired. I don't know if he's arrested yet, but he was fired along with the other 3 or 4 police officers involved. They murdered a man on video for no reason, for forgery, a non-violent offense. There's people doing worse things that get better treatment than that. He was not resisting. He was in handcuffs on the ground, already in custody and subdued. Yet he chose to put his knee on his neck for 9 minutes or so until he couldn't breathe, until he hurt him enough, and ultimately killed him and murdered him and took his life. There's riots in Minneapolis now over this, and in other parts of the country, in Minneapolis now, and this was a case of outright murder. If he doesn't get charged with murder, then this country, in a so-called civilized country, is a joke. So this is the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. He was murdered at the hands of a police officer. He was in custody, in handcuffs, and he was just killed for no reason. You know, no reason. A forgery case. I don't know how much money, $20 or something like that. Non-violent. He was murdered. Now, the way he was murdered, as he watched his life just get taken away from him, was foul. So he needs to be arrested. He needs to be charged with murder, and that's the end of the case. So I'm just giving you my take and information on the murder of George Floyd and what happened in Minneapolis. It was a crime. Don't get it twisted. It was a crime, a case of murder at the hands of a police officer for no reason. So, I guess, well, it was a case of murder for, it was not lethal force. It was not excessive force because no one's resisting. It was a case of outright murder because this guy was not resisting. He was in custody and in handcuffs. He just put his knee on his neck until he couldn't breathe enough, until it caused enough damage, until it caused enough damage and he died. So that's my take on the case of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the hands of the Minneapolis police. So the title of this video is going to be something like "The Murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis by the Minneapolis," and just the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. That's my take on what happened. You could follow up on it, read up on it, see what happens in the future. Will it stop? Will police brutality stop against black men, black people, period, women too, and stuff like that? All right, everybody. Have a great day. This is my view, my information on what happened. The officer had like 18 complaints against him already. He murdered a man in cold blood. He should be charged with murder. It's not excessive force. It's not lethal force. No one's resisting. He's in custody in handcuffs, just lying down. You murdered a man outright, and you should be charged with murder. All right, that's the video for now. My case on the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Peace out from New York City. Peace.